Okay. Hi guys. Sorry about the delay. I had to took some time to make the slides actually. Can you let me know if you can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Yeah. Right. So we'll do the next part of unit number 9. Once we finish this off, we will finish off today's class. Okay. Right. So focus area number 30 is the next part of unit number 9. So this is on protectionism, terms of trade, and also our imports and exports. Mm, okay. Right. So we'll get started. The faster we do, faster we can finish the class off. So starting with 2011, question number 39. Now, this is a bit of a current context question to start with. It's something relevant 15 years ago, but it's a little relevant right now also. They're saying the multilateral financial institute, which has offered the highest volume of foreign grants to Sri Lanka in recent years. Which one do you think? Now, we don't get a lot of grants now. We get a lot of loans right now. But whom do you think? Asian Development Bank, International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, International Development Association, Exim Bank of China, OPEC. So this is the Asian Development Bank. So right now, remember, if they ask you this question right now, Sri Lanka doesn't really get a lot of grants right now. But if they ask you, where do Sri Lanka get a lot of multilateral loans? Right. So the highest amount of loans we've got, most loans outstanding, is from the Asian Development Bank. Okay. So grants are money that you get for free. You don't have to repay. Loans you have to repay. Okay. So Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and the IMF. So these are the main three that has been given or that has been giving you multilateral loans in the recent times. Recordings, guys, will be uploaded whenever I find some free time. Okay. So 2011, question number 40. Consider the following table. They're saying from the table, one possible conclusion. Now, this is a very common question that they give you in your paper. Bilateral loans are countries, yes. So this kind of question, Lamai, how do you approach this question is always remember this. Now, if they talk about terms of trade and they're silent about what terms of trade, there is commodity and income. No, it's always commodity terms of trade. So how do you calculate Lamai commodity terms of trade? That is your export price index over your import price index into 100. So you don't have to now, even for this question now, you don't have to really calculate. But maybe we will do that. Because this has to be 100. Sorry, my bad. This is 100, not 10. Okay, so then consider the following table. And they're asking you, what is the conclusion that you can draw? So they've given us the export price index. They've given us the terms of trade. And they're asking us what has happened. So shall we just calculate Lamai, the import price index based on this information? Can you all put to the equation and give me the numbers now? In the first year, export price index is also 100. Terms of trade is also 100. So your import price index has to be, it has to be 100, right? In the second year, your export price index is 90. Terms of trade is 80. Then how much is your import price index? You can work around Lamai. I will not spend time there. 112.5. Then in the third year, your export price index is 80. Terms of trade is 60. How much is this? 133.3. Right. So what has been happening, Lamai? Your export prices have been falling, but your terms of trade has been falling even more. It has been falling even more. And as a result of it, you can see, Lama, your import price index has actually been increasing. So based on this, Lama, which one can you give as an answer? Yeah, earlier one, just Asian Development Bank, it's just not relevant a lot this now. What can you give as an answer? Number one, export prices were rising. My export price index is coming down, no, 190, 80. No. Import prices were rising, yes, 100, 112, 133. You can say that. Both export and import prices are falling? No. There is an improvement in the terms of trade. In terms of trade is coming down 180, 60. It's not improving, it's deteriorating. more imports could be purchased with the same quantity of imports? No, if your TOD is coming down, with the same quantity of exports, now you can buy less imports. So then that is also wrong. So answer. Then the next one, 2013, same thing. A country's terms of trade currently stands at 150. Base year, it was 100. Since 2010, the average price the country has received for exports has increased by 20%. What do you think has happened to the average price for imports? Now remember, Lamai, in the base year, so base year, you think of it as a starting year. In the base year, Lamai, all these values are 100. Your export price index, import price index, your terms of trade are all 100 in the base year. So in the base year, this is 100, this is 100, this is 100. So everything is 100. Now they are saying in 2000, few years down the line, the question is saying now the terms of trade is not 100, it is 150. They are saying the price that you have got for exports have increased by 20%. So how much should your export price index be, Lavan? Remember, in the base year, export price index is 100. Now, if it has increased by 20%, it has to be here. It has to be. If the 100 has gone up a bit, how much should the export price index be, Lavan? It has to be 120. Then how much should your import price index be? That is what they're asking, right? They're asking you by how much has the import price index fallen by. So if you calculate, how much do you get as the import price index? When you work around and all of that, you get 80. So is 80 your final answer? Is that your answer? Are they asking you what is the import price index? No, they're asking you what would have happened. What is the change in the import price index? So in the base CLMI, any index is 100. Now it has come to 80 here and it has, what has happened? Your import price indexes decreased by a 20%. So which one is your answer then? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Answer number 3. There was someone who wanted me to re-explain the previous one. I'll go through the other terms of trade ones, then you will get the hang of it. Right? It's an easy question. There is nothing hard there. We just use the equation. If you know I'm hoping you know what terms of trade is. If you know that, it's not a hard one. Once we do the other ones, you can go back. You will be able to understand. Okay. Right. So that's 2013, 41. Then the next one, 2014 A levels, 37. They're saying the sectors that reported the higher growth rate in Sri Lankan economy during the recent years. Now, this is something relevant for that year, Lamai. So, Eka will not be correct for this. But if you're asking right now, Lamai, what can you say? What sectors do you think actually grew most? Okay, you can see this, Lamai, from the central bank annual report. Not construction. Construction is actually been performing pretty bad. Give me a second. I'll show you this. I'll show you the central bank annual report. Again, it has to be there. Let me try to find it. Yeah, thank you. So let me share my screen. So this is in 2024, right? So in 2024, these are the sectors that have been growing. So if you look at 2024, you can just jot a few things down, right? Look at the individual sectors. So maybe, for example, things like, you see, construction has been growing because it actually fell a lot, Lamai. So it's coming from a lower base, right? So maybe you can give construction as well. So there is construction at around 19.4%. There is mining and quarrying that has been growing. Accommodation, right? So this is especially with Lamai, tourism and all of it improving. The hotels, accommodation and all is getting better. So you can give accommodation as a sector. Then animal production, right? But these are my small sectors. So a small sector product grown up, it will show as a big percentage. Okay. Those are the ones. Then you also see some manufacturing growth that is happening around a 7.6%. So the main ones you can get. This is 2024, the sectors that have grown. Now, this might not be 100% relevant for that MCQ. That MCQ might have different other answers, but you just jot a few points down from this. So maybe next to your thing, you just have it. accommodation, construction, mining, quarrying, and all of that. Can we select 3? Let me see. Okay, so coming back to the question then. A garment industry is okay, manufacturing. Yeah, maybe even you can go with, let's say even number 3, hotels and all of it should be okay, but not the most perfect answer, but okay. Construction, mining and quarrying, hotels and stuff, you can consider that as accommodation, should be okay. The past paper answer might be different. We don't know. Okay, then that's 2014. Then coming into 2014, 39. This one is saying the market equilibrium and import supply curve of a particular good is shown by the following figure. According to the area, the additional benefit to the society due to the import supply is what? So what is the additional benefit to the society? They're asking you ideally the increase in the consumer surplus here. Consumer and produce surplus. So before international trade, Lamai, just to explain this, if you all know, before international trade, this is your equilibrium price. So this is your consumer surplus. This is before international trade. And then before international trade, this is your equilibrium. So this becomes your producer surplus, this green area. So now after international trade, when you're open for international trade, this is the imported supply curve, world market imported supply curve. So then what happens, Lamai? Consumer surplus increases. So this part here, this part also ends up becoming consumer surplus. And producer surplus comes down a bit into this area. We have talked about this in our classes. So what is the additional benefit, Lama? If you look at the letters, my letters might not be the most clearest, but if you look at it, by which area did consumer and produce surplus? So in other words, your economic surplus increased by compared to my previous one to now. This area, right? This C and F, don't you think? Now B was already a part of produce surplus that the consumer got. But the area C and F, earlier it was not a part of anything. But now because of international trade, that actually comes in. So you can give that. The additional benefit to the society is that areas here. And this diagram is there in your tudes. We have learned this diagram. It should be there. So I'm not teaching the theory lemma because I don't have the time to do this in the past paper class. If you have the tudes, recordings or whatever, you can go back. Okay, then 2015. 2015, 44. Which is the only combination of price changes that must result in a deterioration in the terms of trade. What do you think? So for your terms of trade to fall, which one should happen now? It's your export price index over import price. Now here you need a little bit of logical math sense to figure this out. So we'll go one by one. First one, export prices fall, import prices rise. Can that be your answer? If export prices fall and if your import prices rise, then yes, right, numerator falling, denominator increasing, your terms of trade will fall. So then that can be the answer. Then you, for homework, you look at the other answers and see. So only the first answer will definitely say TOT will come down. Okay, I'm leaving it there because we got the correct answer. Others will ideally be wrong. Then the next one. 2016, now see, number, these are the same question repeated from the 2011 paper. Which one is your answer? They have not even changed the numbers. From this data, one possible conclusion is, remember, the import price index is coming down. Now here, Lama, you don't have to calculate the import price index. Logically think, Lama, terms of trade is your export price index over your import price index into 100. So here, your export prices were coming down, but your terms of trade is coming down further. It's coming down even more. So then what should have happened? Mathematically, if you figure it out, that means your import prices should have been rising. And we calculated, I showed you earlier. Okay. So you get answer number 2. Then 2018 question 40. At present, Sri Lanka's main destination of exports and main origin of imports. So if you take my 2024 exports main destination, US. Import main origin 2024, 2024, it is China. 2022 and 3, it was India. Okay. So you can go with US and China as your answer. Could be number. In the crisis years, India was higher level because India gave us a credit line. So we were importing on credit from them. But now all of those are done. So now we are back again, mainly importing from China. That is done. Then 2018, question 41. A country's terms of trade has increased from 100 to 130. What of the changes could have caused this? Easy again. So terms of trade, you all know, Lamai, is your export price index over your import price index into 100. So they are saying TOT has gone up to 130. So then what you can ideally do is the product logically think and you can eliminate answers, don't have to calculate for everything. So first one, if your export price index falls by 30% and import price index increases, can your TOT increase? First one. Can that happen in the first one? Export prices are falling by 30%. Falling by 30% can export price index is 70. Import price index increase can 100. So numerator is low now, you can't get 130. No, then calculate karanne epa eka. Just leave it there. Second one, export price index fall by 20, import price index fall by 10. So export price index is 80, import is 90. Can you get 130 with that? Numerator is low now, you'll get answer below 100. Third one, export price index increased by 30%. That means export price index is 130. Import price index is unchanged and it is at 100. Do you get 130 at that point? The third one. Yes, right. You get 130. Numerator is 130. Denominator is unchanged at 100. You will get your answers and that can be your answer. So, one by one, go and see. See where you will get 130. When they say increase by 10%, decrease by 15% or whatever, always remember from the base value of 100. Always in the base here, every value is 100. So if they say increase by 30%, it has gone to 130. If they say decrease by 20%, 100 has come to 80. So you need to have that in mind. So answer is number 3. These are also again free marks as long as you know the basic story. Then 2019 question 38. It's a disappointing question. What is the formula used to calculate commodity terms of trade? Basically, everything is hard. Formula. All this time I was writing on the screen. It's your export price index over your import price index into 100, answer number 3. Done. Then 2020. Which two of the following arguments are most likely to be used to justify protection? What is protectionism? Where you put these tariffs, non-tariff barriers to prevent foreign goods from entering. So why do you do that? Why do you try to put tariffs and all of it and prevent foreign goods from coming? To protect high-cost domestic industries? Not to protect the high-cost domestic industries, right? To protect strategically important industries? Yes. To protect infant industries, infant can small firms in your country. Is that a reason? Yes. To protect environmental standards, not really. To maximize government revenue, also not the main reason. Now, right now, the tariffs on motor vehicles is for actually government revenue. But the ideal reason why you put protectionism is to protect your strategically important. For example, in Sri Lanka, an example of a strategically important industry can be tea. Now, our tea is well known. Now, when our tea is well known and we start importing tea from abroad, what happens to our entire tea industry? So, to protect that industry, you will not allow imports to come, imports of tea. Okay. So, answer can be B and C. Right. Then, 2021. They're asking which the following options correctly indicate the import composition. Now here I put a slide here. Now, so our import composition, is a mixture of what? Consumer goods, intermediate goods, and investment goods. So this is based on 2024. Our consumer goods are how much? Consumer goods is this. Sorry. Our intermediate goods is the main part. Intermediate is the 16. Consumer is actually green. Now this is consumer. This is consumer, this is intermediate, and this is investment. I don't think you will have an answer in that MCQ. You can just jot that down. So in 2024, consumer goods are 18.4% of your total mix. Investment goods are also 18.4%. Intermediate goods are the biggest component. Intermediate goods are 63.2%. Okay. So that's the breakdown. So that MCQ might not have an exact answer. You can, next to that MCQ, put that, write these numbers down. Okay, so then that is also done. Next one. 2021, question 38. They're saying, table below shows the record of export price index and import price index for a country. In which year was the terms of trade most favorable relative to year one? So in year one, export price index 100, import price index 100 kyanne, terms of trade is 100. Then year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you have to see which year was it the highest, more than 100. So I'll show the report again when we come to those questions. So how do you figure that out? Ideally, you can calculate. But first, Lamai, before you calculate for everything, use product common sense and see. At least first figure out the ones where it will be more than 100. We'll go one by one. In year 2, will it be more than 100? Export price index is the numerator. That is 105. Import price 108. So denominator is higher. Denominator is higher. Your final answer will be less than 100. So then don't even calculate. Second one, it can be more than 100. 112, 110. But can be a little bit high. We are looking for the one. So we are looking for the highest one. Okay. Third one, 116 and 120. Import price index is 120. Denominator is higher. Then your TOT will be less than 100. Wrong. Fourth one, fifth one, year 5. Year 5, 120 and 121. TOT will be 100, not greater. Then you have the sixth one. Sixth one also could be. So you're left with my answer year 3 and year 6. Which one do you think? You don't even have to calculate. Product logical sense now. When the numerator is the highest and the denominator is comparatively lower, that is where your TOT will be higher, right? If you want, you can calculate and see TOT. But MCQs lose some logical sense. So it will be year number 6, no? It's much higher than the import price index. If you want for practice for year 2, 3, 4, 5, calculate terms of trade and see then in which year is it the highest. That is there. Okay. So answer is number 5. Then 2022. 22 is saying, suppose that in the absence of any tariff, a domestic manufacturer using 15,000 worth of imported inputs manufactures and sells a bicycle for 25,000. The government imposes a 20% tariff on bicycles. An imported bicycle would now sell for 30,000 per unit. Okay. Then what would be the effective rate of protectionism? Now, how do you calculate effective rate of protectionism? Effective rate of protectionism, you have to get your value added after tariff minus value added before tariff divided by value added before into 100. We'll start with value added before tariff. Now, before the tariff, right, before, that is V0, can you tell me what was our domestic guy selling his bicycle for? Our domestic fellow was selling his bicycle for how much? He was selling it for 25,000. That was his gross value of output. How much of intermediate consumption, how much of inputs was he using? Our guy was using inputs of here, first line, 15,000 of inputs. That means he was doing a value addition of how much now? He was doing a value addition of 10,000, right? So value added before, that is V0, is 10,000. Now we'll try to calculate value added after. So value added after the tariff, V1. Now, after the tariff, tariff is put on the imported good. So therefore, they are saying now the imported good is selling at 30,000. Do you think our guy will still sell at 25,000? No one always remember, Lama, your foreign good and your local good, the price will be equal. So when you put a 20% tariff on the import good, if it becomes 30,000, our guy will also increase his price by that 20%. So how much is our guy selling his bike for now then? He's selling it for, he doesn't have a tariff, but he increases price. That's how he gets protected. He gets more profit now. So he gets it at 30,000. How much is his intermediate consumption now? Has there been a tax on the imported inputs? Have they said something like that? If there is, then you adjust that also. එහෙම එකක් කියලා නෑනේ. So inputs are still 15,000. So then how much is his value addition now? Now his value addition is V1 is 15,000. So then now put to the equation. V1 minus V0, that is 15,000 minus 10,000 over 10,000 into 100. How much do you get? 5,000 over 10,000 into 100, you should get a 50. So that's answer number 5. This is not a difficult question. If this is the first time that you're hearing this, you think පොඩ්ඩක් අමාරුයි. But if you know the basic stories, you've done a few calculations before, you know it's not a hard question. Right, that is done. Then the next one, 2022 question 40. At present, the 3 major industrial export items. So I'll go back to my that screenshot there, exports here. So what are the 3 major industrial exports? Now, these are our major exports. Now, can you classify this as agriculture, industry, and you have mineral and other, but mainly is agriculture industry. Can you tell me first one? Textile and garments are industrial, the agricultural, the mineral and other. Textile and garments are industrial. T is agricultural. The 24. Petroleum products are industrial. Agriculture වෙන්න බෑනේ men. Industry. Rubber products. Is it industrial or agriculture? It's rubber products. Industrial or agriculture. Remember now, this is not raw rubber. This is rubber products. So rubber products, this tires, tubes, those kind of, so those are industrial. Okay. Food and beverages, again, industrial, not farming. This is industrial. Spices are agri. Coconut are agri. That is enough. So based on this then, which one is our top 3 industrial exports? What is 1, 2, and 3 for industrial? Top 3 now, textile, tea, and petroleum. Now, rubber was earlier number 3. Now, petroleum re-exports have increased. That has become number 3. So, which one is the top 3 then? Textiles, petroleum products, and rubber products. So, you can give those as the top 3. So, going back to the question there. That is this. No? So, it will be textiles as number 1. Sorry. Okay. You will have textiles as number 1. You will have petroleum as number 2. And rubber products as number 3. I probably in 2022, it would have been rubber as number 2 and petroleum as number 3 idea. Which one is your answer here? Is there an answer that goes in line with this? Textile anyway has to be number 1, so I'll cut this. So this would have been the answer most likely in 2022. This is based on the 2020 central band. Marking scheme goes with number 3. Yeah. So now see now those shares have come down, right? Now earlier, textile, rubber, and food and beverages were 1, 2, 3. But now see, now food and beverages, now textile is 1, petroleum is 2, rubber is 3, food is 4. So what has happened, Lamai? This one has newly come. This petroleum fellow has newly come in. Earlier it was textile, rubber, and food. Now it's textile, petroleum, rubber, and food. Now, how is petroleum a Sri Lankan export, Lamai? We don't make petrol diesel. How is petroleum a Sri Lankan export? These are my re-exports. So these are my with the Colombo harbor now expanding we get a lot of petroleum. It comes to the harbor, we store it and keep. We store it and keep in our country. And then we sometimes when other ships come from other countries, we fuel it for them. And then we re-export some of it. So whenever it's in our country and if it is sent out, Lamai, then that gets counted as your export. We are not really making. We are just storing it and keeping and sending. So in order for this petroleum products, the value addition is very little. So we must be, for example, importing petroleum worth, let's say, for example, 100 million. Product store karla, we might be re-exporting it for 105 million. So only 5 million is actual revenue that we are getting. 100 import karla, product store karla, karla, you send it out. But still it's Sri Lankan export. And that's why petroleum has come up. Okay. So back to the question. Done. Then 2022, question number 41. Again, an easy one, Lamai. They are saying, suppose that a country's terms of trade has declined from 100 to 80. Which change could have caused this? So just think and see, Lamai. How can your terms of trade, that is your export price index over your import price index, into 100? So how did this come down to 80? What could have been the reasons? Go through one by one. Can answer number 1 be an answer, Lamai? Export price index went up by 20%. Import price index, no change. That means export price index is 120, import price index is 100. You can't get 80 from that, no man. So then no. Second one, export price index went down by 40%. Went down by 40 and export price index is 60. Import price index went up by 20%. Then that is 120. Can you get 80 from that? No, you get 50 from that, no? Multiplied by 100, no? No. Then third one, export price index fell by 10, import increased by 20. So export fell by 10, it will be 90. Import went up by 20, you get this? Do you get 80 here? No, you get 75. So no. Then export minus 12, import plus 10. Export minus 12, it is 88. Import plus 10, it is 110. Do you get 80 in this? Yeah. So that combination, if you get 80, then that is your answer. So that can be your answer. So somehow you have to get an answer where terms of trade is 80. So mess around with the numbers a little. Always remember, have that in mind. Base year, it is 100. From that 100, tamai, whatever this plus 20, minus 20, whatever they say, from 100, you have to move around. Okay. So then answer is number 4. Then the next one, 2023. As it relates to international trade, dumping is. What is dumping now? A form of price discrimination practiced by multinational corporations, a practice of selling goods in a foreign market at a lower price than it is sold in the home market, a form of selling more goods than allowed by an import quota, a strategy to reduce trade deficit, a complete ban. What is dumping, Lama? Dumping is where one country sells off all their excess, right? All their excess at a very low cost in another country, because in their country, they can't anyway sell because they have excess. So what they do is they dump it on another country. The problem with that is, then in that country, the domestic producers suffer a lot. If, let's say, China sends so much of goods, right, whatever they have excess, and so much if they send it to Sri Lanka at a very low price, then if there are some Sri Lankan fellows who are producing it, all gone. That is what happened. That is dumping. So which one talks about that? Then answer number 2, right? A practice of selling goods in a foreign market at a price lower than it's sold in the home. Then how is it protectionism? You prevent dumping from happening, because if dumping happens, your domestic guy suffers. If China, let's say, sends all the excess product to your country at a very low cost, then what happens to your domestic producer? No one will buy from him. So what the government will do is government will prevent dumping. If China is going to send like that. Government will put, let's say, a huge tax on those goods. So then those prices will be high. So then our domestic guy can come. And they might even put a quota or even limit. Then 2023, Sri Lanka's largest buyer of exports. Easy one. US, EU, UK, China, India. It's the United States. Roughly around how much of goods, Lama? Now, this whole tariff, Trump tariff, this story, Lama, can be a very probable current context question. What that be prepared? How much? What is the share of US goods that from our total exports, around how much, Lama, goes to the US? Roughly around proportion. If our total exports are 100%, from that 100%, how many are going to the US? The US, Lama, roughly around the 23%-ish is where it goes, right? 22.8. So roughly that. So roughly around a 23% of Sri Lanka's exports go to this. How much is our tariff rate, Lama? Initially, they put a 44% tariff for Sri Lanka. Then it was reduced to a 30%, and now it is reduced to now they brought it down to a 20%. So I don't think they will ask you about the tariff rate, because the tariff rates can change. No? Because tariff rate, when they are making the question, when they are making the paper, and then 1 month later, who knows what Trump will do. So that I don't think they will ask. But what they can ask is, they can ask you, Lama, the impact of it. They can ask you, remember there was a question in the mock paper also. They can ask you, okay, because of these higher tariffs in the world now, or higher US tariffs imposed on Sri Lanka, what is the impact on Sri Lanka? Or what are the problems now our Sri Lankan exporters face? They can ask Lama, a theory kind of a thing. I don't think they will exactly ask what is the tariff percentage, because it changes. No? Because after they make the paper, if Trump comes and makes a change, they think, paper maru karana. So that they won't, but a more theory kind of thing on the impact of it, they can ask. Have that in mind. So go prepare. So that is number one. Then 2024, the last question that you have, one before the last. Consider a domestic industry where the value of imported inputs are 5,000 and the final product is 10,000. If a tariff of 25% is put on the final good and a 20% on the imported good, what is the effective rate? So again, how do you find effective rate? Value added after minus value added before divided by value added before into 100. So can you tell me, Lama, how much is the value added before the tariff? Before the tariff, the gross value of output is how much? How much are they selling the final product for? Before the tariff, selling it at how much? At 10,000. How much is the intermediate consumption? They're using inputs of 5,000. So then how much is their value addition, Lamai, before? Before it will be a 5,000. Okay. Now after the tariff. Now there is a tariff on the final good and also on the imported good. So now when there is a tariff of 25% on the final good, our local guy will also increase his price. So he will also increase his price by 25%. How much will he sell the good for now? Earlier he sold at 10,000. Now if there's 25% tariff on the imported, this fellow will also increase his price. No? He will sell at 12,500. 2,500 is 25%. And then on the intermediate inputs also, there is a 20% tariff. How much will your intermediate inputs be? 5,000 world, 10% is 500, 20% is 1,000. So you have a 6,000 of intermediate input. So now how much is your value addition? Now your value addition is a 6,500. So now you put that to the equation line. So 6,500 minus 5,000 over 5,000 into 100. How much do you get? You get 30. So then that is your final answer. Done. Then the last one. What is Sri Lanka's newest bilateral free trade agreement? This happened last year in February. Whom did we sign with? India and Pakistan, we always had. In 2018, we got into one with Singapore. In 2024, February 4th, Independence Day, they signed. We got into one with Thai. So this is our newest one. Again, a bit of a current context there. Yes, impact on US tariffs can be a question in question 8. Okay, that's the MCQs. Singapore in 2018. How much did you all get? There were 20 questions. None of it is really hard, Lamai. It's not very difficult to manage. How much do you get out of 20? I feel at least a good enough mark should be around a 15-ish. At least 75% of it, Lamai, because these are not difficult questions. Out of the 20, you've at least got around a 15. I feel you can definitely get that. Because these are not hard questions. As long as now, if you have not learned the theory at all, lamai poddak amarui. But if you know the basic theory and stuff, if you've done a few past papers earlier, it can't be hard. Okay. Export chart, I'll show it. It's there in my next slides. I will come to it. Okay. And especially those who are in the mock exam series, these can't be hard at all for you. These questions should be like, Lamai Sipai type of questions. Same thing again and again. Because mock exam, we do much harder questions than this. Now, even the mock exam questions are getting easier for you, Kiana. These have to be even more easier. Okay. Right. So we'll take a small 5-minute break and then we'll come to the essay question. The essay question, I'll show you that chart again. Now, that's there in the next one. So it's 11:24. We'll take a break until maybe 11:30. 5 minutes, just walk around. I'll try and wrap off by 12. Well, maximum 12:15-ish, we should be able to finish. So take a break until 11:30 and come back. We will start with the essay questions. Right. So starting guys with the essay questions of this last final area. The questions are actually easy. Again, same question gets repeated again and again and again. So 2011 A-levels question 8 part 1, they're asking list 4 main items of exports and imports of Sri Lanka. So ideal lamai on your end, know the top 5 exports and the top 5 imports. So top 5 exports, you can give these. You can give tea and textile and garments, tea, petroleum products, rubber products, food, beverages and tobacco, and even machinery and mechanical appliances is okay. So maybe write the top 4 export items. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. These are there in your tudes, but if for those who don't have my tudes, you can get a screenshot of it. And then in terms of import items, you can write this. So import items, what are our main imports now? We have fuel and textile articles. So textile articles can mean for us to export clothes, we buy the cloth and all cloth, the thread, all of that is imported. Machinery and equipment, there are chemical products, building material, let's say cement, steel, those kind of stuff, plastic and stuff, all of it are imported. That's the composition of imports. So ideally, know the top 4 exports, top maybe 5, top 5 exports and top 4 imports. You can take a screenshot or write it down. And if you have written those in this question, you will get your marks. Okay. So then we'll move the next part. Next question is asking, list 5 arguments. Again, a very common question to support trade restrictions. Trade restrictions can be protectionism. Why should you put tariffs? Why should you put quotas? Why should you put, let's say, limits on this thing? So what should you do? So then we remember imports and exports. Yes, 24 top ones. It hasn't changed a lot from last year to this year. Okay. So then this is arguments for protectionism. So why should you have protectionism? So why should you have protectionism, Lamai? One is to protect your infant industry. Remember, there was an MCQ. So infant industries can have these small businesses. Now, small businesses can't compete with the big foreign people. So to protect them, you should have some tariffs on the imported one. Then imported products are expensive. Our fellow can survive. Another one is Lamai to protect strategically important industries. So maybe for Sri Lanka, something like tea. tea is strategically important. So you will not allow foreign tea to come into our markets. You have to stop that from coming so that our tea guys can survive. And also to protect against dumping. Now, dumping, remember I told you, when a foreign country sells off all their excess at a very low cost in another country. So then domestic fellows get harmed. So you have to protect them against that. Then useful to solve your BOP problem. Remember when Sri Lanka had a BOP crisis, we banned the imports of motor vehicles. We limited the imports of so much of other goods. So those are all protectionism. So when you have a BOP problem, you can do that. Then to increase the utilization of your domestic resources, that can be a thing. Right? And to prevent the imports of demerit goods. So in this question, Lama, you just have to list it. Huh? You don't have to explain. You just have to list it. Come there. Avoid dependency on foreign goods. That is also okay. Yes, that's fine. But I would prefer these points there. Then 2013 A levels. Now I've copied and pasted from the marking scheme here, Lama. To control monopolies, not really. I won't put that. Okay. Compare and contrast global and regional approaches to reducing barriers to international trade. This is what you call economic integration. The protect domestic products, no. You have to say producers, right? That is where infant industries that come. So they're asking you to compare and contrast global and regional approaches to reduce barriers for international trade. Now, what is global approaches? Global approaches mean with the whole world is reducing barriers for international trade. What is regional? Regional is where these, for example, SAFTA, NAFTA, certain regions getting into agreements and reducing their trade barriers. So you have to talk about this a little, right? So they are saying here, since World War II, that is since the 1940s, barriers to international trade have been reduced significantly. In reducing these barriers, countries have taken two approaches. One is a global approach, and another one is a regional. Regional means within your country, your neighbors, you've got together and got into some agreements. Then, since World War II, 8 rounds of negotiations, So there are these World Trade Organization conferences. So those negotiations kind of things have happened. And in each of these, they have reduced the amount of tariffs and all of that. So you don't have to know in detail what happened in those rounds. But that is a global approach they've taken. Countries have negotiated and reduced tariffs. Similarly, they also have a lot of, now compared to global approaches, what has happened right now is more regional trading agreements now. The country, now for example, Sri Lanka gets into agreement with India. We have a free trade agreement, one with Pakistan. So with your neighboring countries, now US has one with Mexico and Canada, NAFTA. Now that has also been changed a bit. So with your regional countries, you have got into one. So that's what you have to talk about, right? You talk about how overall this has reduced. Earlier, it was mainly global, but now it is more easier to get, because globally, to get into agreement is not easy, And let's say we want to get into a global agreement and everyone to agree, Amaru. But regional is more easier, right? So regional is like, for example, if you take your class, in your class, let's say there are 30 students. With all 30 people, you don't equally hang out and fit together, you don't share your food, no man. You have a set of around 4-5 people, no? That is what you call a regional approach. Then you have no food left, no? And all 30 people are not equally like-minded like you, different things, all of it. But the close set you have, you all are very, fit, you all are very like-minded, your parents all sometimes know each other. That is that story. So that's why Sri Lanka also gets into mainly agreements with South Asian countries, no? And or maybe other Asian countries. So we have India, we have Pakistan, we have then Singapore, Thailand, again Southeast Asia. So neighbors ekka thamai poddak fit වෙන්නේ. You don't go and get an agreement with, let's say, for example, South Africa. So it doesn't make sense. That's regional. It's more easier to get into agreements than getting a global kind of a thing. So this is an answer I've just put from the marking scheme itself. Just have a read. You don't have to write exactly this. You can write your story. Then the next one. This actually has to come in the previous focus area, but mistaken, I put it over here, but that is okay. No, regional is not bilateral. Bilateral means within one country. Regional is usually multiple countries. Let's say Sri Lanka, India, we have these things like SAFTA, all of it. So if you have multiple countries, that could be a regional one. Bilaterally, we just one country. Even one country agreements is still within our region. We get into. Okay. Then Sri Lanka and China produce garments and machinery. Table below illustrates the hypothetical output. This you all should know, Lamai. Can you all want me to do it, or can you all do it on your own and give me the answer? So if you are calculating opportunity cost in China to make 50 machines, they have sacrificed 150 garments, 150 over 50, that is 3 garments. Here it will be 50 over 150, that will be 0.33 machines. Okay. Then here it's going to be the other side, 50 over 10. Opportunity cost is 5 garments. Here it will be 10 over 50. It will be 0.2 machines. So then who is going to specialize in what, Kudlamai? The ratios. Who is going to specialize? So if you take machinery, China's is 3 garments, Sri Lanka's is 5 garments. So China has the lower opportunity cost for machines. Sri Lanka has the lower opportunity cost for garments. So you can say that who will specialize? So machines now, it will be China. For garments now, it will be Sri Lanka. What is the terms of trade ratio? Terms of trade ratio can lamai the mutual beneficial exchange rate. So that is for 1 unit of machine, it will be more than 3 garments, less than 5. So you can say between 3 to 5 garments. For 1 garment, it will be between 0.2 to 0.33 machines. So we did enough and more of these questions in our previous session. So you all know the hang of it. This is actually a free mark ever because they're giving you 10 marks for this. The 2014 A-level paper is actually not a very good standard paper. 2013 was very hard. So because 13 was very hard, they made 14 very easy. Look at the amount of marks for this. They're giving 10 marks just to find out, 5 marks to find out who is specializing, to find that opportunity cost and give it. And 5 marks for giving the terms of trade ratio. 10 marks, so this is way too much. It has been maybe 2 and 2 marks, 4 marks. But that because that 14 paper, it was made very easy. Even if you look at the format of the 2014 paper, paper 2, there are 2 questions from unit number 1. There are no questions from, let's say, certain units. So they made it completely different, very easy paper. It was a lot criticized also. 2013 was also criticized. 2013 was too hard. 2014 was too easy. That was the problem. Next. Then the next one. Give me a second. The phone is ringing. Hold on. Right. So then the 2014 A-level question number 3. What are the tariff and non-tariff barriers that limit free trade? So what are tariff barriers, Lamai? So tariff barriers are where you have what? You put taxes. So you have taxes on mainly your imports. So different taxes on imports is what you call tariff barrier. What are your non-tariff barriers? Non-tariff barriers like imposing quotas, providing subsidies to your domestic producer, limiting exports voluntarily, controlling the exchange rate, letting your exchange rate depreciate, then imposing trade embargoes, imposing standards of administration, all of it we have learned in detail. Theory tunes in detail we have gone. So as long as you list them, it is okay. Don't have to go to explain in detail because the question verb is what. Then the next one, same thing again. Explain why countries impose barriers to free trade. Earlier they asked you to list it. Now they're asking you to explain. So why countries put barriers? One is to protect their infant industries. So I have given an explanation. You can look into it. Another one is to protect your strategically important ones, to prevent against dumping, to prevent the import of demerit. So ideally, in this one, Lamai, maybe 4 points. Product explain, maybe 5 points now. Maybe ideally you can give 5. So 5 factors, each factor explain for around 2 to 3 lines into 5. That should give you a marks. Then 2015, same thing. State the main arguments for protectionism. So arguments for protectionism means why should you have protection? Now, if they say arguments against protectionism, that is why you should not have. So why should you have protectionism? You should have protectionism to protect your infant industries. This is the same thing in different ways they ask. But here it's just to state. So just if you write the points, it is enough. Then the 2016 one, give reasons for the slow growth of earnings from agriculture exports in Sri Lanka in recent years. Now, this is around 10 years old. But if you are to connect it right now and say, why do you think Sri Lanka's agriculture export? Now, agriculture exports are mainly tea, rubber, coconut, spices, those kind of stuff. So why do you think, Lamai, the growth is very slow? Can you give me some points? Tea is our main one. So mainly if you take tea, Lamai, there has been problems in our tea. What is our problems? One is, Lamai, if you take our tea industry, right? One is the difficulty to retain labor. Now, when people get educated, Lamai, no one wants to go and work in a tea factory. No, tea estate no. You all want to go and work somewhere else, right? So tea industry, difficulty to, Lamai, retain labor. That is a problem. So difficulty to retain labor. And another thing is, Lamai, low productivity. In our tea, you can talk about the low productivity in tea because we are still doing it manually. You have people coming, plucking and doing that. But in other countries, Lamai, maybe technology, all of that. So low productivity, and you can talk along with that, you can say high cost. That can be a problem. And then, so you can say this, and even, Lamai, our tea plants. So our tea plants are around, Lamai, 100 years old. If you look at the tea plants that we extract tea, they are very old. So that means it needs a lot of fertilizer and all to run, right? So tea plants are very old. So it requires a lot of fertilizer and also that increases your cost of tea and everything. So then it might be a problem. You can say that. Then what else can you say? Now, specifically focus on agricultural exports. Now, don't can say limited diversity. That may be overall exports. What else? Maybe, yes, there could be climate issues, right? So climate and various supply side issues, right? So you can talk about those. Anything else? Yeah, so you can say, Lamai, low, you can say outdated technology in these industries, right? So outdated technology, because we are using very labor intensive, those kind of methods. We are not using the latest tech to manufacture our agricultural inputs. You can say that. Lower wages, you can attract right with the first point. So lower wages means it's difficult to attract labor. And then you can also talk about what? Import with a low price, I won't give it as a main factor. Anything else? Agriculture. What can we give? So you can even say this, more people moving to service means, yeah, difficult to attract labor. You can say that. Lack of government support could be okay. Or you can say inadequate government support, right? Inadequate government support. You can say then, yeah, strong competitors, right? So you have a lot of strong competition from even now. If you take tea, Kenya, India, China, they're all producing tea. So strong competition from them. So all of that has meant that your export earnings from agriculture sector hasn't been growing a lot. Okay, you can give that. Low research development, same. Then the next one, 2016, part 3, mention the regional and bilateral free trade agreements of Sri Lanka at present. So we have, Lamai, 4 bilateral agreements and 2 regional agreements. What are those? Can you jot down? I will try to get a screenshot from the Q10 Tagalog. What are the 4 bilateral? What are the 4 bilateral and 2 multilateral or regional? What are the ones? So there are this. I copy and paste it from my queue. Good. I'm trying to paste. How do I paste this? Hold on, I'm trying to copy and mm, no, it's not getting pasted for some reason. Okay, so what are the bilateral ones that we have, Lamai? Bilateral, we have a Indo-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and we also have a what? A new one, Thailand, Sri Lanka one. So then we have one with India. So there is a Indo-Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and a Thailand, Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. What are our regional ones, Lama? We have two regional ones. Those are the South Asian Free Trade Agreement, SAFTA, and we have the Asia Pacific Trade Agreement that is called APTA. Okay, SAFTA and APTA, Asia Pacific and South Asia. So as long as you write that, Lama, you will get your 4 marks. Previous slide was this. Okay, then moving to the next one, 2017 A levels. The performance of Sri Lanka's exports have been lagging in comparison to regional counterparts. Reasons for Sri Lanka's poor export sector performance. Now, this has been a very common question. So I've put in a few answers over here, Lamai. So the same thing you can write there also, 2020 paper, same question. What are the major obstacles for Sri Lanka to achieve rapid growth in exports? So you can talk about the limited diversification. You can, in products, you can talk about the lack of diversification in the export markets. You can talk about a lack of investment in export-oriented industries. You can talk about us having very low complex kind of products, not very technological, none of those stuff. You can talk about that. Then you can even talk about here, wage growth outpacing productivity gains. Now, people have to pay more and more salaries, but they are not really productive. You can talk about that. You can talk about that is connecting with this high cost, low productivity in the tea export sector, declining labor force and labor cost that is also mainly in the tea sector. So, again, around 5 points you can jot down. You can take a screenshot of this, Lamai. Know a few main reasons why Sri Lanka is that. No proper management to control the costs, not an ideal thing. Now, you have to be very specific when you're talking about factors. Now, those are like general management factors that can be even for any country, for any firm. So be specific when you're talking about the factors. Okay. So you can write that same thing there. 2020, question 8, part 2. You can write the same thing. 2020, question 8. Then go in the next one, 2018. What are the arguments for free trade? Now, for free trade, this is the opposite of protectionism. So why should you have free trade, Lavai? That means why should you trade with countries without any barriers? Can you all give me reasons? Without any tariffs, without anything. What are the arguments for free trade? Hmm? What can you say? Give me some points for free trade. Whatever that you wrote. So you can say, Lama, increased consumer choice. So increased consumer choice. So consumer is now able to get a lot of choice. So increased consumer choice, you can say as a result of, improvement in living standards, higher levels of economic growth, then, uh, inflow of latest technology, right? You can talk about that. Consumers can get quality products. Then even you can say, Lamai, the price of it will come down. Economies of scale, not really. Right? So you can talk about what the price of the goods will be low because there won't be tariffs and all. Right? Yes, consume beyond what the country can produce, inflow of foreign investment. So anything, arguments why you should have free trade. In other words, you can even give the advantages of international trade. Yes, enhanced cooperation and this one within countries you can give. No, when you say arguments is not bad, Lamai. So when they say arguments for, that means in favor of. If they say arguments against, then only you give bad stuff. So this is arguments for. So why should you have free trade? Argue that why should you have free trade? So you give the good side of it. Arguments doesn't always mean bad. Then 2019, state for four main items each for exports and imports of Sri Lanka. Same thing that we did in the 2011 paper. This one, the top 4 exports and the top 4 imports. You can write it down. Okay. Then coming back. Okay, this is done. Okay. Then the 2020, there is another one which we did earlier also. The obstacles of encountering rapid export growth. Or they can ask you this in multiple ways. Now they can even ask you this year. Now, even if they ask you with this tariff issue and all of it, you can still say they can, connect that and ask what are the problems that Sri Lankan exporters face. So under the same thing you can write. They can ask it in a different way. Then 2022, they're asking you, explain the difference between regional and bilateral agreements, drawing examples from Sri Lanka. So same thing, regional agreements where you get into agreements between multiple countries. So you get into agreements between multiple countries in your region. That's called a regional trade agreement. Okay, and then what do we have in terms of regional trade agreements? We have SAFTA, South Asian Free Trade Agreement, and the Asia Pacific Trade Agreement. Then what are bilateral trade agreements? That is where you get into agreement between 2 countries. So Sri Lanka has agreements with India, Pakistan, Singapore, and Thailand. And you can explain the story and you can give examples from Sri Lanka and you can explain. Same thing was there before. It's just that they want you to now give more examples also and talk about. Right. Then 2022, again, exact same thing. But see how they're asking it. They are saying here, the exports GDP, which stood at 30% in year 2000, are almost half to 14.8% by 2020. SARC is not a trade agreement. That's another agreement. Okay. Explain the reasons for the dismissal performance of export sector in Sri Lanka. Remember? Also, remember this. Sometimes they will give you a statement. You don't have to explain the statement. You don't have to go and talk about this 30% and make an away. What is the question? The question to you is this. That statement is there just to make the question more complete. Don't get carried away with that. The question is, explain the reasons for the dismissal. Dismissal means bad performance of Sri Lanka's exports in the recent years, or poor performance in export. Same thing, right? They'll ask it in different. They can ask you, what are the challenges our exporters are facing? Why is the performance bad? Why is this actually not actually growing? They can ask you in so many ways. Answer is the same thing. Okay. Right. Then 2023, provide 2 arguments each for and against protectionism. Now, for protectionism, we had no. That is what we had no. Preventing against dumping, protect infant industries, protect strategically important industries. So that part we have done. Can you tell me against protectionism? Why should you not have protectionism? Now, what are the bad sides of protectionism? If you put all these protection, what happens? No, you don't have to connect the facts to the statement. So what can happen? Because of if one country puts tariffs and all, that means high cost, high prices, right? So high prices for consumers. That is the biggest issue. Then what can other countries do? They might retaliate. There can be, for example, trade wars and retaliation. That can be an issue. It can actually harm what? It can limit the inflow. Limit the inflow of latest technology, limit the inflow of raw materials. It can be extra cost for your producers, like for your exporters, for your other producers. If you have tariffs on the imported goods, that can be a problem. Yes, it can limit the growth of GDP, market distortions. Yes, you can talk about all of that. So again, directly there in your tute, just give 2 points for arguments for protectionism and 2 points for arguments against protectionism. Then 2023. Now, this is a little bit of a new one. Quality of goods can be decreased. You can say that quality goods coming in can be reduced. Okay. What is the significance of an improvement in the commodity terms of trade? So commodity terms of trade, if it affect the standard of living, you have to be very specific though. You say then decrease standard of living. But there are more better direct points rather than the indirect points. Okay. So if your commodity terms of trade improves, so your terms of trade is Lamai. Remember, we did so much of MCQs. It's your export price index over import price index into 100. So TOT is improving here. From your exports, you're earning more than from your imports, assuming that the volume and all of it is constant. So then you can say, Lama, your export revenue can go up because from your export, the price of your exports are higher. You're getting more from it. Assuming volume is constant, you can be able to get high. Plus, your imports will start coming down. Maybe exports will be more than imports. That can help with Lamai, you having a favorable trade balance. And net exports growing can, and your economy can grow. Your economy is growing can, you can have increased standard of living. You can talk about Lamai, reduced external vulnerability because now you're earning a lot of money and you have a lot of your reserves are increasing. So you have that. And also, you can also talk about Lamai, positive effects of government budget. So if you can say, if there is so much of trade happening, government can collect a lot of taxes from these export firms, from their profits and all, that can be there. But not a very direct one. I would say give the direct ones first level. Okay. Yes, real output increasing, fine. That's also okay. Okay. So you can give in your points and you can, I'm copying this directly from the marking scheme and give. Then the next one, 2024. What are the main causes for 3 points now? Right, 3 points, 3 marks. Main causes of the persistent trade deficit in Sri Lanka after 1977. Now, Sri Lanka has always had a trade deficit. Why do you have a trade deficit? You have a trade deficit because your imports are very high and your exports are not that great. So give reasons why Sri Lanka's imports are high and give reasons why Sri Lanka's exports are low. That is why we have a trade deficit. So same points what we wrote earlier, dependency on primary good exports, limited export base, it's not diversified. Then vulnerability to global prices. When global prices change, we import oil and oil imports go up. Okay, you can give it. No, not the same as the 2017 answer. Here it's trade deficit, not just export. This imports, exports, both. Then high import dependence, you can say that. There's a question. US said input tariffs on Sri Lanka. No, US put tariffs on Sri Lanka. Who said they did not put? There is a 20% tariff on Sri Lanka. Yes, I'm hoping you were there in all the previous classes where we talked about all these current context tariffs and all. There is a 20% tariff that Trump has put on Sri Lanka. Okay. Then you can talk about we import a lot of essential goods. And you can talk about that. Then we have not really had our manufacturing compared to, let's say, countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, the Southeast Asian countries. Our manufacturing hasn't been really great. Local prices are too high, maybe. So you can connect that and say inflation in the country. That has meant that your exports are not competitive and you buy a lot of imports. You can talk about that. Overvalued exchange rate, rising domestic demand, right? So now even right now, Lama, we are seeing that. No? Right now, we are seeing a rising domestic demand. When the economy is growing, now see how many people are buying cars, how many people are buying the latest iPhone 17. So all of those are what? All of those are imports. So when domestic demand is rising, since Sri Lanka is a very import-dependent economy, our imports will also rise now. So you can give points as a talk about points where why our imports are rising and why our exports are not doing that well. That's why you have a trade deficit. So ideally give around 4 points. Should be enough. And also, when you are writing, before writing, put the think. Or let's say you know around 7, 8 points. So you combine points and write. Write full nice points. Okay. So you do that. Get reason that is not available. I didn't know. That is not a reason why we have a trade deficit. That's a reason for international trade. So be specific and also write the main points first. Don't go and write nonsense first. You create a bad impression there. Write your main points first. And if you can combine multiple points together, combine and do that. Okay. So if you have, let's say 7, 8 points, you know, make it liyan only hataraini. So combine 2 points together. Then you have a nice, complete, nice one. That's for you to do. And then the last one, what measures can be taken to improve Sri Lanka's export competitiveness? So what measures can we take, Lamai? We can look at diversifying our export base because we have a very few selected export products. Maybe we can diversify that, right? So we can get into more electronics, more pharmaceuticals, more IT related stuff. We can do that. Then another one is uh, promote value added exports. Remember, I always talked about this. Now, instead of, let's say, exporting, let's say, Tambili, you cut the Tambili, put that into a can and export, you can earn 5 times more. If you export, let's say, a raw Tambili, you can export it for $1. But a Tambili එක පොඩ්ඩක් කඩලා, you put it into a can, nicely package the can, you can sell that can for $5. So on the value added exports. Now, even don't export raw rubber, rubber එක tire එකක් කරලා export කරන්න. You can earn much more. So focus on that value addition. Then setting up industrial promotional zones, improving the productivity and innovation and all of that. So all of it, you can give in as solutions, diversifying our export markets, you can say. Okay. Having strong relationships with other countries, increased marketing activities. So all of it can help increase Sri Lanka's export competitiveness. Yeah, that is all that we have. Increase cost of production and discuss production, not a main point though for that. Okay. That's all for unit 9. So unit 9 is not hard, Lamai. The questions that you get is comparatively very direct, straightforward. Same thing they ask again and again and again and again and again. So it's up to you to get the work done. If you've done the past papers, it's not at all hard. Okay, so with that, we are done with unit number 9. We ideally have unit 10, which we will do tomorrow. And then 11 and 12, Monday morning and Wednesday morning. So 11 and 12, I'm only doing the MCQs. I'm not doing the essay questions. So Monday morning, we'll do a part of the MCQs. Friday, Wednesday morning, we'll do a part of it. So by this Wednesday, I will finish off the past paper class for you. Is there any part can come apart from this? There can be. So there can be other current context stuff. There can be stuff in the tute that you have that can come. So as long as you've done these and looked at your tute, you should be manageable. Okay. So ending it, I will see you all tomorrow. Unit number 10. Yes, fast track current context you can get. I'll send a message. Okay. See you.